Okay, so I'm going to start this drawing. It's going to be in pen and ink. And the first video is just going to be a wash. And so I'm looking at, again, I'm just focusing on Renaissance portraits right now. If I had a model, I would use a model, but I'm just using this picture by Andrea del Sarto. It's a study for the head of John the Baptist. And I kind of blocked it in. And right now I'm just going to block in lights and darks. So I'm using the ink wash. So here I created a couple different values of black and I'm using a brush. In the second video, I'll enhance with pen and line. So I'm using a piece of watercolor paper. That's why the drawing is kind of small. And because it can hold the water. And then I'm blocking in the darker areas. Sorry, it looks like there's like some sediment there. So I'm just starting to block in some values that I see. When you do something like this, the only bad thing is that you won't be able to fix it unless you use chalk. So you kind of have to be careful about getting too dark. So I'm just looking for areas that are dark. And I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to mess up. There's some areas that are darker. I'm just kind of blocking in a generalized dark area. Where I see values that are darker for right now. And then if it needs adjusting, I'll adjust. So this is the shadow area. I'm using the watercolor paper because it holds the water-based media more. If you have done watercolor, this is like watercolor in black and white. And you can also use black watercolor for this if you don't have ink. So I'm just slowly building up areas of value. Whoops. I'm going to add detail with a pen and maybe some chalk later. But I want to get, I mean, you can do, when you do like an ink and line drawing, you can do as much ink as you want, as much line as you want. Just looking for the areas of the lips that are darker. So you could like stop here and do the rest in line, but I want a little bit more. A value on here before I use other materials. Right now I'm blocking in what I see as clumps of hair. And there'll be more detail added to this later. Again, your goal doesn't have to be for it to be exactly like the picture, unless you want it to be. But I'm using the picture as a reference since I don't have a model here. When you're very advanced, you could probably do it without a picture. When you do wash and line drawing, you could do line first as well and then do wash. Or you could do wash, line, and then more wash over it. Or just wash and line, whichever way you want to do it. But I find that putting in some value kind of helps me get started. I'm just looking to kind of see what I need to. So I'm going to go back into the face and try to put in some lighter values. That, like, see right there, there's a line that I may not, like if I wanted it to be more blended, I could go back into the darker value and try to blend that in. Some people like working wet into wet, and some people like doing um, dry layer over dry layer. So I'm getting some dark and I'm going into that. That was just pure black. I'm going to add some water to it. And I'm going to the areas that are really dark. There we go. There went the water. So again, when you go really dark, like if you get too dark, there's no way to lighten it. So that's the thing you have to watch out for. And I want to blend this. So I rubbed my brush on the paper towel. And now I'm kind of drying it. And you could use your finger, a Q-tip. I'm trying to kind of blend it in like this. Or a paper towel or a cotton ball. I'm just trying to, I think that looks a little too, it's a little too messy. So if you work on a regular piece of drawing paper, it's not gonna hold it like the watercolor paper. If you don't have the watercolor paper, you can use a piece of charcoal paper that'll hold at least a little bit more water. I'm putting in the dark for the nostril. So I'm going to try to do as much as I can in wash for this, and then I'm going to let it dry and then make another video. When you change from one thing to another, like wash to line, you want to let it dry unless you want that bleeding effect of the line bleeding into the wet area. Give me 1 second. I'm just getting a Q-tip. So you can kind of blot with the Q-tip if you want. And just looking for more areas that are dark. Trying to pick out different values as fast as I can because this could take a couple hours, right? Because it's going to take you longer than working with a pen or a pencil or a piece of charcoal or even just a pen. And kind of starting to look like a portrait. On this side, there's some shading, but it's lighter. So I'm just testing out my ink on my piece of paper. I don't want it to get too dark. That's why I didn't start over here. I want to make sure that this shading over here is very light. And you can do as much or as little wash as you want. Does have a nice effect though in drawing. A lot of people do this in a brown or a sepia color for figure. I'm just thinking to myself, like, do I want to add more wash to it or let's keep going? I'm doing this could take a couple hours to get it like really perfected. I'm doing, I'm trying to make a fast video, so I'm not doing as much as I normally would. And I'm going to go back to the hair. I need more clumps in the hair. And I'm going to do a lot of work with line and maybe shading with pencil and charcoal pencil. I'll see. So I may combine, but this was my initial value work. I'm trying to keep this light. So you can be a perfectionist about the pen and ink, or, oh, that got darker, or a bit sketchy about it, right? Whichever, or both in certain areas of the drawing, whichever you feel like you like. And some more hair over here. And I'm just taking a look at it and I'm thinking to myself, do I want to keep messing around with it? And I'm going to make this a light gray right here in pen and ink, or do I want to, and I'm sorry, in wash, excuse me, it's still pen and ink, but it's the wash part of it. Or do I want to uh, let uh, continue with just the pen and some other stuff? I'm trying to figure that out right now. I'm going to come in with a dark. I feel like there's some areas that are not dark enough. That's bleeding right there. So that's what happens when you don't let areas dry. You see if you like that or if you don't like it. Some people like it. Some people like the effect that it gives, but you can't always control what it does. So that's just something to think about. Some people like that and work with it, and some people don't like it. I'm using the Q-tip here to kind of blot it and blend it. Even though it's watercolor paper, now it's starting to bend because there's a lot of water on it. So you can decide how much wash you want to put on it, because I'm going to add more to it. And I want this eye to be darker. You know what? I think I'm gonna leave it and do the rest with like line and chalk and charcoal. Just gonna blend that. It's just getting a little too wet, but you could do a lot more in wash. I mean, what you want to do in wash is up to you. I'm gonna stop this and let it dry. Okay, so I'm gonna add some line to this, and I'm using the pen. So this is the pen that I'm using, and I'm just dipping the pen straight into black. I want a thicker tip for some of these outer lines, but since I have this really thin tip, I'm going to go into the eye and try to do some of the line work. So this is like when you do a wash drawing, you can't get this with a brush. So that's why people do wash and line to add some of the detail. And it's still a little bit wet. You can see a little bit of bleeding, but I'm going to keep going. That's a little too wet. I'm going to try to, let's go over to this eye. No, that eye looks smaller. And then that's the only problem with the ink is that, like, I can't erase this, right? So, and it looks smaller and it looks lower. Um, Let me leave that for a minute. It doesn't look horrible, but it looks a little asymmetrical. So I'm going to look at the nose. Just trying to get an outline on it. And the lips. So you have to keep re-dipping the pen into the ink if it runs out. I have another class on how to use this. So that's kind of like the precursor to this. If you seem like, if you're thinking like, what's going on here, right? So when, like, if you don't have the ink, you can just dip the pen into the black watercolor, into your black watercolor. Okay. Now I am going to come up here and put in the eyelid. So you have to be a little careful and slow when you're doing this unless you want it to be sketchy and you're not going to really be bothered by any sketchy mistakes. So like some people do kind of like a gesture type drawing with pen and ink. I'm just outlining the eye and I'm putting in the pupil. And I'm going to bring this up and I'll see, maybe I can correct it later with a white piece of charcoal. I'm just trying to make this eye a little bit taller. Whoops. So you can see how easily you can make a mistake, right? Okay, so now I'm going to change the tip. Wait, I just want to do one more line right down here with this tiny tip. Okay, so I'm going to get another tip. This is a fatter tip. And I'm going to do some of the fatter outlines, like where I want. So see how much fatter that tip is. So I'm going to outline some of the things that seem like they have thicker lines. It moves faster because it's fatter. So that kind of bled right there. That black got into the other black. And then that's going to create a blot. So if you don't want that, you can let areas dry. And it takes a long time, but so I'm working into some of the lines of the hair because the hair has a lot of line work in it. I'm going to enhance this with pencil or charcoal pencil. I'm just getting started here. So here we're mixing different media. So, I mean, this looks very like perfect lines. Like that's not what hair looks like, but that's just my starting point. So I'll probably have another set of lines in charcoal pencil later when this dries. I'm just trying to find like kind of the direction of the strands of hair right now. And this kind of looks very stylized, but I'm going to enhance it later. I'm just getting some generalized direction of lines. I mean, hair doesn't look like this, but it's looking more like hair than just the clumps of value, right? So I'm working into the drawing. And I'm going to come over here. I don't want to sit my so I'm being careful because like what if I put my hand right here and that's all wet? I'm going to totally mess it up. So I want to make I'm raising my hand. And if you make a mistake, you have to work with it. That's the good and the bad of pen and ink. Whoops, that was too much ink. So you just can see how kind of it's really hard to control a lot of things in this. I'm gonna probably leave it at that and finish the line work with something else for the hair. But I'm gonna come down here. Actually, I'm gonna go into the eyebrows because I was gonna make the eyebrows with the thinner pen, but I thought it would be better with this pen or with this tip, excuse me. Now, if I use the thinner pen, I could put in every hair, but I just kind of wanted to make a shape. And over here, it's going to be lighter. So what I'm doing is I'm dipping my pen into, that's too light, into the ink, but then I'm kind of dipping it into the wash. That's too dark as well, to try to get a lighter value of black. There we go. Only problem is that, whoops, that eyebrow got too big, right? Let's see if I can fix it with the Q-tip. No, I just made it worse. So later on when it dries, I'll try to fix it with the charcoal pencil, but I am going to put in some of the line work down here. So like if you're using a lighter color value, excuse me, when you test it out, like you can't tell how long it's going to stay on the paper, when you might need more. Each batch of color looks, or of value, sorry, in color it's color, in black and white it's value. Each batch of value looks different, and then you can't control how long it's going to last on the pen. So just a lot of variables that you can't control. All right, I'm just trying to think to myself, is that enough with the pen? And I'm going to say yes for that. And I'm going to come back in and correct with either colored pencil or charcoal pencil and add a final layer. Okay, so now I'm going to enhance. Some parts of it are still a little bit wet, but I'm going to work into the areas that are not wet first. So I'm going to use a gray colored pencil to start. And I don't want to sit my hand on it because that's going to turn into a mess. So I'm going to come over to this side and enhance some of the shading. And I'm also actually going to make this contour line. I didn't want to do it with the pen because I didn't want it to be that dark. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and try to enhance areas of gray. And do some blending. You can also use chalk for this. I was trying to use colored pencil to make it a little bit more delicate. I'm just seeing if I like the way it looks. I'm gonna go for a dark. I just I'm gonna go for the black charcoal pencil right now. I'm just having trouble with the light. So I'm going along this edge where it's dark, and I'm blending the charcoal pencil into the darker wash. You could also use a piece of chalk. I'm just looking for areas that are darker among the wash, areas among the wash or within the wash that I made that are darker. Okay, I'm going to take a look at actually this side of the neck first. So you're able to enhance the shading with the charcoal pencil or colored pencil in a way that you probably wouldn't have been able to do with the pen or the brush. Okay, so I'm gonna come take a look at this eye. And I'm just looking for areas of dark. This is not perfect by any means. I'm just kind of looking around the picture and looking for areas of dark that I didn't get with the wash. And that looks a little sketchy, but I'm okay with that. You can actually do a lot of blending, but I'm okay with the way it looks for right now. You can do line work, like those are lines. You could also do that with the pen, which would be hatching, cross hatching, or contour hatching. And the eye is a little darker around the edge, so I'm going to try to put that in. And I'm going to get the gray colored pencil because the white of the eye is not all white. It has a bit of a dark in it, so I'm going to try to shade that in. But I don't want to use the black because I think it's going to be a little too dark. I'm going to come up here with the black charcoal pencil and I need to get into the hair, but let me just look at the eyes first. I'm using, I don't want this eye to be as dark because it's in a highlight on the face. So I'm using the gray colored pencil. And again, there's a little bit of shading in the eye, in the white of the eye, excuse me. I'm going to get the black charcoal pencil for this area. And just trying to do a little bit of shading with the gray colored pencil, trying to get the circles under the eye. You can actually get quite a rich texture in your drawing by using mixed media. I'm trying to make it a little darker right here and have it blend into the lighter gray wash. And right here, it's a little bit darker in between. Sorry if I'm moving around. I just kind of notice different things at different times. I'm just looking. So the correction before I go into the hair, it would be like, say, remember I thought I made this eyebrow too black. So this is a white charcoal pencil. So that's the way that you can correct it. I made it too fat at certain points. So you can go in there and like kind of, it's not an eraser, but it can get rid of areas that you made too dark. Right? Just can go right over it with white. And maybe right here a little bit. Seems like it might be a little too far out. And that actually made a big difference. So I'm going to go into the hair. And I just have the black charcoal pencil. And I'm going to add hair, but also add hair in different directions, right? Because it's not all, the hair is not all stylized going in one direction like it looks like it is with these clumps that I made. I can also make thinner lines. Lines that are over crossing, so it just doesn't look like a stylized mess. So like if I'm going in this direction, it could be like, well, there's hair in this direction and in this direction, which is what you often see with hair because the strands aren't always staying together. And I'll also put some more in here. Okay, it's starting to look a little bit better, not perfect. I'm not even, right now I'm actually just trying to make these clumps look a little bit more realistic. I'm not really actually even looking at the picture. I'm just trying to get some line work in there, and then I'll go back in and refine. So I'm coming up here and adding. And what happened right here? I'm going to put in some shading here. Okay, it's actually starting. I mean, it doesn't, I don't think it looks great, but it's starting to look a little bit more better. I'm going to come down here and add some right here, some shading. Some addition to this line work right here. I'm just looking for things I need to change. You can go on and on and on with this, like for a really long time. I don't know how long I want to make this video, but so again, I'm trying to make the videos kind of not too long. So if there's areas of light in the hair, you can come in with the white charcoal pencil. And if you like, I'm starting to think that the lines that I made with the black ink are a little extreme. Like they're kind of distracting me from the rest of the drawing. So I'm trying to break them up with the white charcoal pencil. Maybe leave a few in, but maybe kind of subdue or like dull down a few of them with this white line, having a white line go in to the charcoal pencil drawing. I don't want to take all of them out, right? Or otherwise, what was the point of me putting them in there? But sometimes that's what you have to do. Some of the, like, I'm still not really happy with the hair. Like, it's just too uniform. So some of the areas are full areas of dark. So I'm just going to come in here and try to get some of like a highlight or a shadow within the hair, right? Which makes it more dynamic. And remember, you can go back into the drawing with a wash over what you've already like done in pen, charcoal pencil, or colored pencil, right? So I'm just trying to darken some of the areas. I think that looks better. Like a kind of darker area of the hair that's kind of coming out from under other areas of hair, and then having it light up and let the line work show through, instead of having it look all the like kind of similar and the same. And this is by no means like perfect hair. I'm just trying to get it to look somewhat normal. Again, people do some artists do areas of hair really sketchy, and some people do it like super realistic. Some people do it stylized, and some people do it a mixture of all of them, or two of them. Okay, that's starting to look a little bit better. And let me do some over here. I'm trying to go dark near the face to emphasize that this side of the face is light. There we go. That looks much better. And I need to look at this area right here. This is a little too much here. Maybe it's just some chalk or charcoal pencil lines outside of all that heavy hair. Okay, that's looking better. And some line work right here. So when you're doing pen wash and ink, or wash in another medium, you're mixing both line and value. So you get a really, really interesting drawing with a lot of different properties. I'm just going to darken a few things in the face that I see need a little bit of adjusting, like that line right there, this area right here. It's okay if the lines on the face aren't, like these lines that I put on the face are sketchy and they're not perfectly blended. You can do them either way, depending on what you want in your drawing. But I mean, I think it looks okay with the kind of sketchy lines. I don't think that takes away from the drawing. It kind of, in some cases, it can make it look more interesting. I'm just looking for what I need to change here. And I want a dark, so this is, yeah, I do need some more dark right here. So there's like kind of a stripe of dark right here in this portrait. Not a stripe, but a little value area that's a bit darker. So you just go right over the wash, maybe allow some of the wash to show through, blend it into the wash. And I'm going to come up here and make this area a little bit darker, as well as this. So I'm adjusting values. It's almost impossible that you get the values right on the first time. And these are not even probably like perfectly correct. But you start putting in like, well, here's a light, here's a medium, here's a dark, right? And then you'll say, well, this needs to be changed. This needs to be a little bit lighter in comparison to that. That needs to be a little bit darker in comparison to something else. So it's a process where you're working on your drawing. Just taking a look at it again, seeing what I may need to change. I'm going to go dark right here. But I mean, I could have left it light, but I just. Just darkening this circle a little bit. And what about right here? This side, I mean, this light may be a little bit too light. And right here, again, that may be a little too light. Starting to look okay. And then I'm going to get the gray colored pencil and darken this gray area a little bit, darken this area. Put in some line work here that's a little bit lighter because it's with a gray. And like, I mean, I can leave this like this as, you know, having some variety in the drawing. I'm going to come right under here and kind of have a shadow being cast by the hair in gray. And this is totally not perfect. I'm going to come here and correct. I'm going to make this kind of a little bit darker with the gray. But you can see how it's sort of like slowly kind of coming into a portrait. This is too light. I'm darkening this. And I'm seeing more things I need to adjust. So there's shading here. This is not just pure white. I'm coming here and just adding a little bit of dark, bringing this up a little bit. Like I want to leave some of the wash showing, right? Like right there. I think that looks really good as in terms of relation of wash to line or colored pencil, right? Like I mean, there's no point in doing a wash and then drowning it out, and so you can't see any of it, right? Just like I wanted to see leave some of the lines, the fat lines that I made with the pen in the hair, right? Otherwise, why do it, right? But like if you can have something that shows a little bit of all the layers and media that you made, then you're creating like a really rich and dynamic drawing, if that makes any sense. Some people would have more wash, some people would have more line. It just depends on your preference. I'm going to come in here with the gray and kind of darken this area a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to leave this alone before I mess it up, right? There's a wait. As you can tell, I can always see something that I need to change. But like there's a time when like a big mistake that you can make in drawing is messing with it too much, right? Until you overdo it and you can't fix it. But as you can see, I can start seeing things I need to fix and coming in here and fixing them. And one more thing. There's a little highlight right here, so I'm bringing in the white charcoal pencil and putting that in there. You can blend it or leave it. And I'm putting some white charcoal pencil right here. Okay, I'm going to leave it alone before I totally mess it up.